we have fuel, we have a machine. It's pretty simple, but there may come a day that we don't have the opportunity to get the fuel we need, or we have a saw that breaks down, that we're not able to get the saw that we need. So we have other options. You have an axe, so you're not going to you may cut your tree down with an axe, or at least start it with an axe, or debark it with an axe, but you're not going to be cutting rounds with an axe, because that's a lot of wasted wood. It's a lot of effort to do that. But an axe is a useful tool, even if you have a saw, just to get things started. But so how would you cut rounds without a chainsaw?
Whip saw.
A whip saw. What's another name for a whip saw?
Crosscut.
A crosscut.
Misery whip.
A misery whip. Yeah. So this is maybe a topping saw or a one-man crosscut. So you could put a handle on the other end here, but this is a big enough saw that one person could operate it. It has an extra handle on top here, so you would go across your rounds. Just gives you a little more leverage with that. And then we have another one, a two-man saw here. And there are many different types of patterns. Your cutting teeth are these teeth here, and then your rakers are the ones that are a little bit longer here, and they'll draw the material out of the cut as you're cutting with your saw. So you have your cutting teeth, your raker teeth, and there are different types of saws. This one has double cutters, double rakers. This one alternates cutting teeth and raker teeth. So it alternates. This one here has easily removable handles, which is handy because you may need to transport it or change it up. This one has 4 cutting teeth in a row, and then rakers. And this one, if it has a straight back, it's a buck saw. So a buck saw is what you're going to use when you have your log laying on the ground and you're cutting it into rounds. So a buck saw is a crosscut, a two-man saw that's going to be used for cutting your rounds. This one here is a falling saw. So notice the deep teeth here. Again, it's 4 cutters, 2 rakers. But when you set it on a flat surface, notice that it's canted. And there are some that are more canted than that. But this one they all have bellies, which is kind of the curvature here. This one's fairly straight, but this has a curvature to it. But that allows it to keep from pinching when you're working on a falling situation. And that keeps it from pinching. I think typically a falling saw has a single hole and a crosscut, or a buck saw has 2 holes. Although I see this has 1 hole, but this has a straight back, so this is a buck saw as opposed to a falling saw. But so those are different things, and I've recently just learned the difference. Kind of keep an eye out for things, antique stores. This was from a salvage supply store that was just they're cleaning up people's places and they find things. So this needs a little bit of conditioning. It's a little on the rusty side, but some WD-40, some light oil would hone it up well. This is just another saw that I picked up, but it has a sheath that someone made on it to protect the teeth. So you can also make a sheath out of like old fire hose or something like that to protect the teeth that you've spent time sharpening. So this is it's set up here as a one-man saw, and could be used as a two-man saw. Here's a hand buck saw. There might be another name for it, but this is another way to do a crosscut. Probably wouldn't be doing logs this side, but this would be for smaller wood. that you'd be cutting up into like limbs and things that you might cut up into smaller wood for like the stove wood. Just an easier cut with that. So some different ways to get your wood into usable sizes. And what do we use for sharpening our our chainsaw? A file. So there's actually a whole sharpening set that's made up for crosscut saws. And you have your file for sharpening the teeth. And I don't have a setup for doing this yet, but I have the tools. This is for holding your file, for doing your filing appropriately, as well as for just adjusting your rakers. If your rakers are too long, then your cutting teeth aren't going to get down into your wood. So you have to kind of adjust your rakers. So a saw that has long teeth is a younger saw. If it has short teeth, it's probably been used a lot more and has less life left in it for use. And this, there's a couple different tools here. This is called a spider, and it's basically a feeler gauge that helps you adjust the pitch of your teeth. So they're going to be slightly offset, so they're going to cut through the wood when they go through the wood. And this isn't set up exactly yet to cut, but you can use a feeler gauge to assess and set your spider to the right height, and then just hammer it so that you can get it to the right size. And then you would use a tool like this, along with the hammer, to set your teeth. And then you check it with the spider. They talk about if you want a good relationship with your saw sharpener, because they'll set your teeth right if you're having your saw sharpened commercially or by someone else, because they can set those teeth wide for you and just make it really miserable, because it's trying to cut a big blade. But a narrow offset is more efficient, but you can have an offset more, and then it can be more difficult because you have a wider kerf. So the kerf again is that amount of wood that's taken away, and is your waste wood, which is your wood chips on the ground, essentially. So you want to be able to have the equipment to actually take care of and maintain and keep your iron sharp, your saw sharp. So this is a sharpening kit that is commercially available. The U.S. Forest Service has some great resources for saw sharpening, for saw types, for saw safety. They have a 80-page booklet. They actually have some DVDs and videos, because in the wilderness areas they still use crosscut saws, because chainsaws and mechanical equipment, motorized equipment, is not allowed in wilderness areas. So they're still doing trail maintenance, trail building, and so they still use those things today. An antique saw, like these are antique saws, are going to be better quality than the new saws. The steel is just different and doesn't work as well. One thing that can be helpful is having some vegetable oil in a squeeze bottle, because that can help keep the pitch from building up, especially in a pitch-bearing tree, pines and firs. And that just makes the saw go through the wood more difficultly. A couple other tools that are handy to have whenever you have logs around, to move them around. Remember that you can move the whirl if you have a long enough lever. This is called a cant hook, which enables you to move a log and roll a log easily. It has a sharp point and a sharp movable hook here that you would just put into your log. Let's just toss a round down here to illustrate that. So this is a cant hook, so it just rolls your log, and you can roll a very long log that way. So this load of logs I brought home on a trailer, a flatbed, and I was able to roll the logs off with the cant hook. Some very large ones, you can see, had some pretty good sized rounds here. So this is a cant hook. The cant hook has has a pointed end. The PV, and this is actually a modified PV, has just a hook down here and more of a, usually it's not even that pointed. This is one that's designed to get your log up off the ground. So I'm going to roll this up here a little bit here. So it functions. This is my first one that I got, but it allow you to get it off the ground, and then you can pin it down, and then that way you can cut your log. It's going to drift off there without getting your saw in the dirt. So that's helpful.
To be aware of new videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to the Preparing for the Time of Trouble channel. For more free videos and downloadable audio podcasts, as well as handouts, go to www.preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com. Topic categories include recordings of live seminar presentations, country living, sustainable gardening, homestead remedies, how to be self-sufficient when the grid goes down, wild edible and medicinal plants, hydrotherapy, and end-time Bible prophecies. To take advantage of these free resources, go to preparingforthetimeoftrouble.com.